another discipline of yoga. And so the silence, the stillness, the quietude as the teaching. And I'm presenting this not simply as just as a technique, as something that possibly we could integrate into a yoga pose or a yoga class, and then get back to business as usual. Because I think most of us are starting to realize that business as usual is changing very radically and fundamentally and quickly. And I've been feeling just collectively sort of an anxiety around what to do, concern about what to do as this, radical change is emerging. And so I'm really presenting this silence, really taking time on a consistent basis to just sit with yourself just in silence as an extremely valuable and important thing to do, not just for yourself individually, but for the collective consciousness, if you will, the collective shift and transformation. Because not only do we get to experience that the structures, yes, and the momentums of the collective are shifting and changing, and I would dare say falling apart, yes, but we have the opportunity to let things shift and change and fall apart within us if they're no longer working. So if we're holding conceptual structures, if we're holding identities, and we're not even aware of it, and we just go from technique to technique or to concept or belief to belief, it doesn't give us the opportunity to really know ourselves. This is really the very essence of yoga, is to know yourself. And I would say to know yourself as your source. Not to know ourselves, again, like I said, conceptually, but true self-knowledge. Who and what am I at the deepest possible place I'm able to connect with? So especially the yin yoga, and certainly that we move and we go from pose to pose, and I provide some commentary, but the essence of the yin asana as we're moving into the body is to have a container, to have the body really as a sacred container to just simply be still and be silent. And then see the vibration, how the frequency of physical body, emotional body, mental body, ethereal, spiritual, whatever bodies you want to call them, how they're actually feeling, how they're interacting, and what is the nature of what you call yourself, and to challenge the nature of what you call yourself. Because I do believe that the healing, the deepest healing that we now have available to us for ourselves and for the collective, is to genuinely know ourselves. And I said just a few moments ago, to know ourselves as our source. And when we begin to know that, then we know everyone else as that same source. We have the opportunity to then move into different relationship, move into different frequency with each other. So let's come on up, if you will, please. So just nice and slow, no rush here. You can just bring your feet off of the bolstering that you have. Maybe remove the support under your upper spine. Maybe bring the knees up to the chest and sway a little bit. And we'll just get ready to move a bit. And I'd like to come into the shoulders. And so if you are having, like Carol's having some shoulder stiffness and may not want to go into this as deeply as you could, what we're gonna do, this is a yin pose called open heart. And the way that we approach it is coming from a child's pose to just open the knees a bit so the hips can relax. And then we could just simply do it by stretching the arms forward and relaxing the forehead onto the floor. So for some of this in itself will be a nice challenge for the shoulders. If you would like to see some different intensities, you could put the hands on the bolster in front of you or a pillow or two. So what this does now is it allows my head to come below my shoulders. So my shoulders are feeling pretty okay today. So I would even put a small bolster on the large bolster. So you could build blankets up or pillows to a nice height. And then elbows are straight, hands, palms are on the pillows or blankets or bolsters if you have them. And so now when I let my head come down, this is really evoking something in my shoulders. So opening the legs a bit, placing the head on the floor, or not using any of the bolstering if that's not appropriate. And at some point, if this becomes too tedious and the hips have had enough, you've reached the limit, you can stay here and just open the legs out. If you have no bolstering, not so much for the shoulders, but then you might want to put the hands on the bolster. So in other words, if I was reaching a point where my hips were at their limit, I would just stretch my legs out, and then I could still put my arms up like this and still have a nice shoulder opener. So any of those options along the way. And as always, do make sure if this initial movement in is not quite right, you feel free to modify and to adjust and just use this as a general template and allow your body to fit into a position where it's evoking some compression, pressure, stress in the shoulder area. And that's all you really need to do. The body will just do the rest. And then certainly, many, it seems class to class, I offer sort of a variety of benefits to be had from being still. Yes, certainly we have anatomical benefits and just different opportunities to explore the nature of the sensations. So what I'm also adding to this is our willingness to simply be silent within a pose, to consider a pose a container for exploring. So this is one of the reasons why we don't want to be in a distracted place, an unsafe place with the physical body. I want the physical body to have a softness and a safety to it. So as we explore these other areas, we're also exploring, like I'm suggesting this afternoon, is silence as the teacher. And this is, originally what yoga was, how yoga really was seated, was received. It was just simply sitting quietly and exploring the nature of the self, to quiet down all the assumptions we have about what that self means. what we're holding as self-identification, and just relaxing into just a quietude of open awareness. So just a bit longer here. So if you're feeling the intensity start to build, especially if this is unfamiliar in this area, just relax into it. Just make sure you're safe. Just feel it. And try not to, again, we're trying not to chase good and avoid bad. We're simply trying to be with the presence of whatever the experience is, and especially however that experience is changing moment to moment. This is why it's always so valuable to remember to just soften and relax and calm the breath. So if the breath is reflecting some intensity you're feeling, and we start to calm the breath, then the mind will start to calm, the body will start to calm, and it just takes us into just a more relaxed presence, you might say. Good. So if you still have your arms up on some kind of bolstering, let's just take the arms off of that and bring the arms in. If you have the legs still open in a wide child, just bring them into just a child's pose. And we'll just come into child's pose here for a few moments. And just tuck the head in, if you will. Typically we do child's pose with the forehead on the floor, if that's accessible to you. But if you're able to just tuck the chin up and in a bit, so the top of the head comes closer to the floor, pull your belly in a little bit, make sure you're breathing. We can just have a nice sort of counter pose forward bend here before we move on. Good. So we can just come on up from here, and let's just keep moving here. So what I'm going to suggest is to take, again, your big bolster. And if you don't have the big bolster, you can use a couple of pillows. And so we are going to arch the back, so we don't have to build the pillows out so the entire upper body is supported. So the pillows work well for this. I'm also going to suggest, whether you're using the bolster or not, to sit on a towel or a blanket to elevate the pelvis a bit, and then have the opportunity to have a little something for your head. So I might use a small bolster, but you could also use a blanket. And what I would like you to do is just sit on the padding that I've suggested. So it just brings the hips up a little bit, and then tuck your pillows in or your big bolster in, but not all the way. So I'm trying to get this more, yeah, this is perfect. So I have more of a central mid-back backward bend. And then I might or might not use something for the back of my head. Depends how the neck is feeling. So we just want the back nice and arched here. So it's not completely specific. That's what, with these being so large, it's hard to get it very specific to the lumbar.
Of course, you may feel something there, but just a nice, wide open, relatively supported because you're hopefully sitting on something. So in other words, if I remove what I'm sitting on, it would drop my pelvis down and intensify more into my lower back. I'm suggesting not to have that for the moment, to have the lumbar area relatively supported and just feel this more from the mid back line, basically, but in sort of a broad way, and just let the arms relax. So pretty simple here. Yep.
And simply noticing for yourself this relationship between calming the breath, and sometimes that's a deliberate, and sometimes it's just an allowing. It's just feeling that, oh yes, my breath was responding to some tension I was thinking about or feeling, and I can just calm the breath and notice if it responds in the body, notice if it responds in the mind. Very important not to spiritualize or complicate this quietude or this stillness. This is available to you at any time. It's very, very accessible. And one of the things that we're using the space of the asana for, an asana is always an invitation to continually recalibrate your sensitivity. Recalibrate your sensitivity. This is about subtlety and sensitivity. So we don't judge our willingness, our capacity, our experience of silence by a lack of thoughts or a lack of concepts. They're going to be there. What I'm simply suggesting is don't go too far into them. Be playful with them. Any concept that comes your way, just simply imagine it as a toy that you can play with. And eventually you get tired of playing with the toy. Imagine it as a sandcastle. It can be elaborate and complicated and beautiful, and you could even give it some importance, but eventually it's going to start to dissolve. And these toys, these conceptual toys, arise within the open awareness of silence. So this is a very, very accessible. So the willingness to just be silent, to just allow the silence to pervade, to permeate. And then if things arise, we just don't get so engaged with them. We're not so interested. We're holding space for ourselves. We're recalibrating a sensitivity to this quietude. This quietude, again, a means to our awareness to gain what I'm calling self-knowledge, not conceptual knowledge. This sense of inner quiet, this is our cleansing. This is our fast. See who you are, which in a way is the opposite of who you think you are. Let me say that again. See who you are, not who you think you are. Then just simply be with who you are. If any of the intensity along the back line feels overly distracting, you're not sure if it's safe, always appropriate to put the feet on the floor and make a little adjustment, put a little more padding under the buttocks. We're not holding the asana to evoke an anatomical change or release, although that certainly can be a consequence. Ideally, we're holding the asana to cultivate this inner space of exploration, and this evoking of a deep quiet inner silence, spaciousness, call it spiritual or not, but this is how really we cultivate a very deep sense of well-being, because we get beyond that need to be labeling and defining and holding everything that comes in and out. And we just get to rest in just the presence of the energy and see that we have great opportunity before we have to react, before we have to label, before we have to weave in concern and worry. We can just be with this deep, deep presence of literally who we are. So what I would like to suggest now, since we've been here for a while, instead of trying to come out immediately, this can be really nice, is to just put your feet on the floor and let's roll over. You can roll to either side, but I'm going to say to the right, and right onto those left rib, to the left, just because I'm facing that way. Either way is fine though, but I'm rolling over to the left and I've got my left rib cage on that bolstering or pillows. And then you can just extend that right arm up and over and stretch the right ribs as well. And have a little bit of movement here back and forth. So we're really incorporating a lateral flexion here with that back bend. So that's always so nice for the spine. As many directions as we can feel its mobility. And then when you feel ready, I'll just leave a little time for this to go back and forth. So you can go a couple of times. You can go over to the right rib cage. Try not so much for the waist or the armpit, but really the broadest part of the ribs there. And just stretch, and you can even moan and groan a bit, whatever you would like. Part of the connection with the way that we bend laterally or back or forward even, is to start to feel that the spine has these lovely curves. It's not straight. So when someone tells you to sit up straight, that's a misunderstanding. The spine has curves. It can flex laterally. It's articulated. It's got a tremendous amount of capacity to move. And it's seated in the sacral pelvic area. It's just a lovely thing to just get to know viscerally. So sometimes we just feel like, well, my spine is either stiff or not, but it undulates. It has movement to it. It's a lovely thing, a spine. And then when you're ready, let's come off of this. So again, feet on the floor. You can roll off of this, roll to your side, and then just make yourself comfortable. You can lie flat for a while, and we'll take a rest. That was a bit extensive for that backward bend. And you know what I'm suggesting, and I'll just say it again because I've really been experimenting with this in my own life for a while, and I've really been trying to get away as much as possible from theory and just speak from what is being explored and evoked and challenged in my own practice. And my experience has been that when I do cultivate for myself a deeper sense of genuine well-being, then I relate to others from that place of well-being. So this is what I'm really suggesting that the quietude has to offer. It's an extremely powerful way to explore. And even if, you know, very often I will come upon, conceptual information that I want to explore or emotional challenges that I want to explore. So what we're really able to do then is to then take those challenges, take that information, and let it be sifted through this place of inner silence, this place of inner stillness, even creativity. And we may often be, feeling or drawn to, or something creative is evoked, but it seems like it's obscured a bit. There's an opaqueness there. So the same thing, this source, this energy, this frequency is extremely creative. It's who we are. We are creativity. So to be able to put time aside to allow the silence to be the teachings, allow the silence to be the teachings, the quietude to be the means to self-exploration. This can be with a linear, logical, informational challenge, an emotional challenge, a creative challenge. So it's just a matter of letting go of some of these assumptions that have kind of layered into this self-identity, and just to challenge the truth of it, challenge the veracity of it. So let us come on up and let's get either a blanket that's rolled up or a towel that's rolled up, or your small bolster if you have the small bolster. Either one of these works. And just to tell you, this combination that we're doing, I used to do it a lot more often than I do it these days, but this is a very, very potent combination, the way that we're going to do it if you are having some density or stiffness or pain in the lower back, because it's addressing one side at a time, a specific area, almost targeting an area back and forward. So if you want to work into that area on your own, this is a really good way to do it. So the way that we're going to start this is, let's take the, I'm going to just use the roll, but again, if you have the small bolster, do the exact same thing with it and pull it in back of you so it's only coming to half the left lumbar spine. So because it's soft, it can touch on the spine, the center line of the spine, but not all the way across. So sometimes we'll lay over a roll or the small bolster on both sides of the spine. What I'm suggesting is take this bolstering and put it only to the left half, yeah? And then keep the feet on the floor and just relax over it, yeah? And we'll start, you can start with both legs relaxed out. And then if it's a lot of compression and you have the roll, you can unroll some. If you have the small bolster and it's too much, then move to a towel and roll it up. And we'll just let both legs relax out. And then the option that we will have, I'll just say this before we get into it, is what I'm going to do is I'm going to suggest at some point we bring that
left foot up and in. So the inside of that left foot is touching, about at the knee. Could be a little higher, but about at the knee. So the weight of the left leg knee pulls into that lower back. You'll feel the compression. If you need respite from this, straighten both legs out again. If you want more release, bring the right leg up. That'll tilt you over to the right and almost release it completely. So if anywhere along this you feel like it's getting too much, you don't necessarily come out. You can modify it with the legs out. But let's start with both legs out just for right now. Let it seep in. We'll take some time here. And then whenever you feel ready, what I'm suggesting here with that bolstering into the left lumbar area, to just slide that left foot up somewhere along the inside of that right leg and let the weight of the leg drift down towards the floor. This should be very obvious what this weight is doing. We'll hold it as long as you're able to, but if you need to release, you can straighten that left leg back out. That may be enough. If you want more, you can bring the right leg in, and that'll tilt you off to the right. I said a bit earlier that this, this direct contact with silence to moving into a space of quietude, it can often be quite confronting. So one of the things that we can explore when these confrontations do present themselves is to begin to question, and this container of silence is one of the most powerful places to question the illusion of linear time. So linear time and our conceptual frameworks are just so intertwined.
and also foundational to most of our concerns and preoccupations and fears, on and on. So when we can truly relax and expand and drift into silence, there's no linear time there. This is a frequency that is much, much closer to the frequency of life itself. If there was a frequency to source, let's say, then the frequency of source. But we go from a dense place of worry and concern and linear time and concepts to a more refined frequency. This is what I was saying earlier about recalibrating our sensitivity, our moving into our spaciousness, our hearts, our minds, our bodies with more and more subtlety and sensitivity. So at this point, if you still have that left leg up and on the inside of the right leg, let's just start by straightening the left leg out and just feel any sense of compression release there. So let's just stay here for a moment. We'll just release it almost in stages. And then leave the left leg where it is, and let's bring the right leg up and in. So now that leaning to the right, and just lean off of that bolstering, and we'll keep releasing off that left lumbar. And you can even pull that out from under you. So whatever you had on that left side, just pull it out from under you. And once you've released that bolstering, you can just straighten out the right leg once again. And we'll just be here for just a moment or two. And so I want to continue. It's like I said, I want to target that area with the back and the forward. So let's come on up. And now we're going to do the same position, only forward. So we'll extend the right leg out and we'll bring that left leg back in. So simple, we call this half butterfly. The sole of that left foot somewhere along the inside with a nice relaxed hip. So with the right leg out, typically the forward bend will contract into the left lumbar. You may or may not feel that directly, but anatomically, that's the suggestion. So let's bring the upper body forward nice and slow, and maybe slower than usual because we still have a little of that back bend reverberating. So you can sway the upper body a bit, take your time, relax your head down, bring in some support if you need some upper body support. be careful that you're not trying to cultivate some elusive present moment experience. This is not about cultivating any state of mind. This is simply relaxing into this inner place of stillness, of quietude, of silence that is already there. So the moment we turn it into, a seeking, a practice, even if it's a very refined, spiritual concept, we've turned it into something. What yoga is really suggesting is that this silence is just the presence of the cosmos itself. This is pervasive. And we've had to work very hard to separate ourselves from that and construct and continue to construct these personalities and these ego structures and these concepts and these images of self-importance. This is fundamentally where most of our exhaustion comes from, most of our dysfunction comes from. So the silence is just a very beautiful, simple invitation to rest where you already are. You've never been separated from this source frequency, this source presence, this open-ended awareness. This is the fundamental nature of your being. This is the beingness in the beingness and consciousness and bliss. This is your beingness, and we become conscious of it, and then it turns out that it's very blissful. But we're not looking for it. We don't need to cultivate it. We just need to, I don't even want to say surrender to it. We just need to rest into it. We need to find a way to rest, to simply be quiet, honor that quiet as a profound teaching, and just allow ourselves an open-ended drifting in the presence that is. So let's come on up from here, if you will. Just roll up. And you can straighten out that leg. And now indeed we will take a rest since we did back and forward. So before we do the other side, just make yourself very comfortable. Let us take a rest before we move on. See if you can allow your yoga to be more of a meandering through your experience instead of a sharp focus. This is what really the opportunity of yin allows us. We're more interested in the felt sense and the vibratory nature of the body, not so much the calculating logical focus, but just a meandering and an interest in these experiences from a playful place, not from a diagnostic place. This is one of the the interests of this approach that we hold for long periods of time, because the prolonged compression starts to, in a way, move energy, the compression and release. And when I say energy, I'm also implying that the body, at the level of vibration, has certain frequencies, yes? And we have very harmonious frequencies, and we can feel those, and we feel this, let's say the frequency is in a certain attunement, yes? And we feel light and love and curiosity and this deeper sense of well-being that I'm talking about. But then inevitably, we do have our experience with trauma and dehydration and repressed emotions, whatever it happens to be. And this will alter the vibratory frequency. And then this gets expressed typically as what we would call pain. So in a way, this way that we're exploring the body, it's opening up some options for us. So when we feel pain, we're not so habituated to just fix it and get rid of it. We start to learn how to listen to the vibratory frequency that it has been altered in some ways, no longer harmonious. So this is the compression and release. It's actually altering the way that the body is vibrating at these various frequencies. And then there's a whole just cascade of hormonal and chemical and cellular events that are happening at this level. So let us come on up from our reverie, our rest here, and let's do the other side of this. So the last side we did, I showed it with that rolled up blanket. If you do have the little bolster and you want to use that, same thing here. But we'll start obviously now with this will go on to the right side of the lumbar area. On the spine, if you want a little bit, it's good off to the side, to the right a bit. We'll start with both feet on the floor and we'll just settle over it. Ooh and ah, yikes, ay chihuahua, whatever works for you. Head on the floor, relax the legs out first. Yeah, so once you're here, just give it some time. And obviously on this side, we're gonna bring that right leg up so it compresses into that right side lumbar. Oh, I just wanna stay here with you. But I won't. I will come out of my reverie here and sit up so I don't fall asleep and we're in here for 30 minutes. And just simply notice how you are moving through your body. You know, oftentimes in these various modalities, you know, we have so many habits of how we respond and react. And, you know, even a practice like this where it's so incredibly open-ended. So if you notice that when you come into a pose and you start to feel this intensity, that immediately your mind does pretty much the same thing, or your body does pretty much the same thing, allow yourself to get closer to the edges. And whatever you're feeling, even whatever you're thinking, expand it a bit. Bring your experience more to the periphery. Be curious about just the nature of your experience. Don't allow this this progression of, yes, I'm feeling this, and now I'm thinking this, and now I'm feeling this, and I'm in a loop here. Again, recalibrate sensitivity with whatever you're experiencing. It doesn't just have to be a definitive pain in your lower right lumbar. There's almost an unlimited amount of experiences that are morphing and appearing and disappearing. So be curious about these experiences and your relationship to them, and how you're defining an experience, how you're interpreting an experience. But basically, at some level, our habitual need to interpret is really just the same thing as suffering. So what we're suggesting is to ease that up a bit, relax, and let those interpretations just be more playful and less interesting, and allow yourself to relax into this experience. Don't even have to define it. What is it when it's way at the edge and you can barely perceive it? And then let it fold back into something else, and let it open a door that opens another door, and let it deepen and let it come to the surface. And then we get to see there is no surface, there is no deep, there is no inner, there is no outer. You're just having these experiences that you do not need to interpret. And all of this is playing out. This whole drama is playing out in the depth and the container and the sacred space of silence. And at any time, if you need to straighten that right leg out, that'll provide a little bit of relief if that's needed. And if you want a little bit more, you can bring that left leg up and it'll again drift you off. And again, this is this is also part of recalibrating sensitivity. It's never really either or. It's really listening and honoring what the body needs. So there's no there's no prescription, there's no aesthetic. We're not just trying to hold it to see if we can, and more intensity is better. The sensitivity we're recalibrating is listening to the wisdom of your body. So if your body needs to back out a bit and it needs to withdraw and it needs to rest, and this is what it's asking, this is what it's informing you of, and you do that, this is the most intelligent thing to do. And this is how really we deepen this experience of our physical yoga, primarily by listening to the contraction and the expansion of the body moment to moment, and how we relax and change it and hold it. And so it's very, very, in its way, it's very non-linear, because there is no, like I said, no prescription. I'm just really here holding space to, allow this exploration, but the way that you explore is really unique to you. Good. So once again, if you still have that leg up and in, let's straighten that leg out, that right leg out. And then once you've got that level of release, if you'd like, you can bring that left leg up and in, and this will take you over to the left a bit. And then once you've tilted over there, you feel some release, you can pull out whatever you have under that right lower lumbar, and then you can straighten the leg back out. We'll just take a rest here for a bit. And then let's come on up. And again, we're intentionally not taking a lot of time, because we're feeling that back and forth with the from the back to the forward. So obviously, just repeat what we did on the other side. The left leg will be out, the right leg will be up and in. I'm just suggesting going slower here. So this right leg out, possibly drifting into more of the right lumbar, but that's just a sensitivity. But do let the shoulders and the upper body really surrender. Surrender, be curious, sink in, and basically the same amount of time. So just find a spot you can just really drift into the body. Like I said, what did I say earlier? Meandering. Yoga is just meandering through the experiences of the body. It's not really complicated. It's not esoteric. It's just a way to get a little bit closer to these experiences that we often bypass, because we have this capacity with our concepts to be 10, 20 steps ahead of ourselves. So our mental rhythms and our physical rhythms are very seldom in alignment. And this is what causes some of that discordance with our inner frequencies. So when we slow down the stringing, the firing, the engagement with our conceptual imaging, and feel the pace and the rhythm of the body, this allows us to then relax. This allows us then to move into that quietude. And then we're open to exploring something very different, not our self as we think we are, but as we are. This is one of the reasons why consciously breathing is so incredibly valuable, because you would think to simply stay with several cycles of a breath, to stay with the rhythm and the presence of an inhale, an exhale, back to an inhale, back to an exhale, you would think that would be relatively easy to do. But when we attempt that, what we see in a rather short amount of time is that the habits of the mind hijack us away, and before we know it, we're far, far away from that simple conscious practice of breathing. So this is not good or bad. This is something to explore. So if you'd like to just come into that simple conscious breath of a cycle, a full cycle from when you inhale, you release the exhale, it transitions out, you come to the end, the completion of the exhale, and you feel it transition back into an inhale. That's a cycle of the breath. See if you can just do 6 of those, and notice if your mind, even without you knowing it, will hijack you and take you somewhere. Just to explore, to explore the mind, body, breath relationship. So let's come on up from here as well, please. And you can straighten out that leg, and let's lie down. And as you lie down here, if you could just remove any bolstering you might use to relax. So nothing under the legs, nothing under the head, just lie flat. This will set us up for the next thing, but let's take a little time to relax here. I was quite bewildered today. I notice that at least once a day I'm bewildered by our, not even so much by the current state of our species, but just by our species itself. I'm not really sure what we're morphing into, which it was really why my passion really these days is to deconstruct and simplify this process of awakening to our true nature, and to take it out of the realm of the esoteric and mystical experience. You know, nothing wrong with mystical experience, but uh, we want to be able to rest in the fundamental nature of our own awareness and consciousness and identify as that. So then, anyway, I will tell you what bewildered me today. So as most of you know, or some of you know, I have these two lovely kitties. They've often made on-screen appearances. And now, these days in the heat, they're spending, most of the day just totally chilled out and relaxing and napping. So I was in the store today getting a few things, and I saw CBD oil for cats. And I thought, oh my, what would these kitties do if I gave them a little CBD oil? How much more relaxed can they get? So, maybe in the fall, that's what I will do. Maybe I'll turn the teaching over to them, give them a couple of hits of CBD oil, and they can teach the yoga of relaxation. We'll have to see. I just came up with that idea, so maybe not. We'll see. So let's just go back to laterally flexing the spine. We'll just do this for a bit. And again, this is nice just to give the spine the opportunity, especially after all the forward and back. So hopefully you're just lying flat on your back and just no rolling here. Most of you have done this. This is just a half crescent of the body. So best to keep the upper body first grounded and just walk both heels without bending the knees and without rolling to the left at all. So both shoulders are still on the floor, just both heels to the left as far as they'll go. And then bring the upper body over the same way. So your body's making this lovely half crescent shape going over to the left. Then take the right arm and put it up over the head. So the back of the hand will be resting on the floor. Don't just hang the arm in the air. Find it so it can relax. Left arm doesn't matter where it is. And then this might be good if you want to maybe deepen a little. This will pull and tug on the psoas. Take that right ankle, the outside leg, and put it over the left ankle, again with both knees straight. And any of that, if you're feeling tugging a little, that is SI joint, psoas. So this is, besides the lateral flexion, it's really nice for that whole pelvic area. And we'll just stay here for a bit.
you do have the ankles crossed, let's uncross the ankles. And you can relax that right arm. And we'll just bring the body back to a straight spine for a few moments before we do the other side. And then when you're ready, we'll just repeat the same thing on the other side. So keeping the upper body where it is, we'll walk the heels over. Again, no rolling to the right, no bending of the knees, just walk them over. And then the same thing with the upper body. We wanted the left shoulder to stay on the floor as much as the right. Then the left arm can come up and over. And just find a spot where the back of the hand at least can rest on the floor. The whole arm can rest, but at least the back of the hand so it's not too compressive in the shoulder. And then if you'd like, you can bring that left ankle over the right. This would be the outside leg. We'll come into this half crescent shape.
Another important aspect about recognizing silence as the teaching is that it's tremendously restful, tremendously safe, and we get to experience this as a great value. So we're not simply finding these little places of rest and contemplation just so we can get back to what we consider the more important activity of activities. We're able to start to cultivate this silence as just as valuable, and then it allows us to move into our activities from a more refreshed place, if you will. And part of the nature of our activity, combined with the nature of our compulsive need to conceptualize and label, is just the nature of experience itself. When we really start to relax into this curiosity of experience, we start to see that it's not as solid as we had once hoped, or it's not as solid as we're telling ourselves it is. The stories about experience a little bit different than direct experience, whereas experiencing is morphing all the time. It's blending into more experiences. It's always changing. So that can feel disorienting and that can feel unsafe. But it's when we really relax into the nature of this experiencing, we see it has a dreamlike quality to it. So this is where yoga is saying, let's make a distinction between all of the experiences you're having, all the objective experience, whether it's an emotion or a thought, and even mystical experiences, spiritual experiences. They get very refined, but they're still experiences. So let's start to make a distinction between the experiences and your awareness of them. And let's spend some time resting in this awareness, this still, open, expansive, infinite presence of awareness. And then we get to rest from our entanglement with the experiences themselves. So let's, if you still have the ankles crossed, let's uncross the ankles. And you can bring your legs and upper body, relax the arm over the head. And then if from here you want some intuitive movement, if you could just lay still if you would like, or you could bring your knees up or bring your knees side to side, whatever feels good at this point. It's much harder to see this in the dream state because the dreams are so obviously fragmented and not continuous, and even though they can seem quite real, whereas on our waking state everything seems rather seamless and seems to have continuity. So we take the time to explore that. We take the time to, in a way, what we're doing in yoga is deconstructing the nature of the experiences and the difference between experiencing itself. What is the nature of your experiencing in relation to the experience that's always changing? So it gets very tricky. And this is why we can't chase it with the mind, because the mind, the intellect, the concept is just another experience. We have to rest back into the nature of ourself, the beingness of ourself, the openness of ourself. We have to go to, you might call it ground zero, the seat of the self, we call it in yoga. And then from there we observe. Just like we were having a lucid dream, we know it's dreaming, we can observe, oh, that's a dream, that's changing, this is not me, I'm the dreamer. Same thing in our yoga. We want to not only recalibrate our overall sensitivity, but in a way we're recalibrating our capacity to observe the nature of reality. Okay, so let's come on up, please. And I'd like to just open, we're going to sort of open this out and then bring it back in. And I'd like to do the first part with a square position. So you can either keep the square open, or you can let's bring the left leg in. So from sitting position, just bring the left leg in front of you. And then if you're able or would like to bring the right foot on top of the left calf, we'll just sit with the legs crossed in a square position. If this is not quite accessible, or you prefer to open it, just open that right leg out in front of you. So square either way, one's more open, one's a little more closed. And then let's just come forward from here. Relax the lower back, soften in. Yeah, try not to feel like we're coming forward, to place the forehead way in front of us. It's much more tucking in. So if you get down to the floor, the shoulders are completely relaxed. The intrinsic muscles of the lower back are as engaged as they can be, unengaged, excuse me. So we're not stretching anything, but we're just letting the weight of the body provide just natural compression. And certainly we can call all of this meditation, we can call it yoga, we can call it many things, but at its most profound and its most simplest, we're simply being aware that we're aware. And this is as close to ourselves as we can get. We don't have to go looking for this. We don't need to cultivate this in any way. We can just ask ourselves continually the simple question, am I aware? And of course, the answer is always, yes, I am aware. Then we can see that we have a great gift and capacity and power even to direct that awareness into attention. The attention then turns into the objective experience. What yoga is suggesting, what the meditation is suggesting, is you can also reverse that. You can release your attention from the object and relax back into simple awareness. I am aware that I am aware.
So let's come on up from here, if you will. And we're just gonna very naturally open this out. So let the legs open and just place the soles of the feet together. So it's almost seamless. We're just really continuing the backward bend with just changing the geometry a bit. So basically the same forward bend. Let all the back line muscles relax as much as possible. Let the head and the shoulders relax. If you need some support up front, use whatever you need, and we'll just soften into it. And as I said earlier, so then at this level, when we simplify the yoga, let's say, we simplify our relation to life, our understanding of that we are simply awareness, the fundamental nature of our being is awareness. What I believe I said earlier is that then we don't need to go looking for the good and avoiding the bad, because we've released ourselves somewhat from the suffering of having to apply interpretations to everything that is happening. We just let reality unfold before us and allow ourselves to experience the texture and the nature of it. And then we can reserve good and bad
for the movies. We can sit comfortably and allow good and bad to play out, and we don't get all worked up and afraid. We just enjoy it as a playful game. And when we relax into our fundamental nature of consciousness, we can do the same thing. We just let ourselves enjoy the unfolding drama, the play of life. So again, let's come on up from here. And let's extend the legs forward approximately hip width distance. The only option here, you can just come forward with no support. If the pelvis is tilted a bit, the back of the legs are a little stiff, sometimes it's nice to place a roll or a bolster under the knees. This sort of alleviates the femurs, lets the pelvis come forward a bit, lets the tightening of the hamstrings release a bit. It just changes the forward bend. So use this if you'd like, and sometimes it's nice to just hover at at where your edge is. So this is what we're doing, is just playing this edge. So either way, your choice. Good, so let's come on up from here, and then we'll begin to bring it back in. So let's just bring the soles of the feet back together and continue our forward bending. And so again, nice and slow, and just notice, it's good sometimes to just notice if it's any different than the first time you did it. So this is the weaving and the unweaving and the sliding and the contracting and expanding of this, fascial network as we compress it and release it. So we want to verify this firsthand. Is my body responding to this compression and to this release and to this unwinding and just just the firsthand experience of it. I believe that our anxieties and fears get held in place when we forget about the not just the intelligence and the profound interconnection of life, but the seamlessness of life, which we are a part of. And we begin to really believe that that what happens, that things hinge on what happens. But the reality is nothing hinges on what happens, because the unfolding is seamless. Something happens and something unfolds from that, and something unfolds from that. And we can contract and we can interpret and we can weave all of our creative stories into what happens, but the fact is it's just happening. So this little small correction, and we can just play with this, that nothing hinges on what happens. And we just can then relax into the flow and the seamlessness and the interconnection and the intelligence of life itself. Good. So let's come on up from here, please. And this time we're going to bring the right leg in first. So, because I believe I said the left one, and then the left foot can either be out in front, or I like to put a blanket under my ankle, or you can put that foot up onto the right calf. So before we go forward for the final time into the square pose, if you could just, if you're able to interlock your fingers behind your back. If not, you can just bring the arms up. But if you can interlock them, it just makes it a little deeper into the shoulders. And just start to straighten the elbows and bring the arms up just to open the chest. You can gently press the lumbar area forward. You can bring the chin up a bit. Have a little movement of the head side to side. So just a little bit of passive movement. And then you can relax the arms, release the fingers if they're interlocked, and let's come forward for this, finish this sequence. So the left leg would be front or on top. So let us come on up from here. And you can open up your legs and let's lie down and make yourself comfortable. And make yourself comfortable in any way that works for you. This will be our final Shavasana. If you'd like to go back to that initial restorative pose with the padding of the pelvis, but your choice. And we'll come full circle to where we began in just honoring and respecting silence as the teachings. And namaste.